Alright, so from the very beginning. Ronaldo, you ready?
Yeah.
Sonia, you ready? Alright. You want to solve when the problem has an equal sign. That is all the time. If there's an equal sign, you want to solve. Alright. I don't know if this is where it filled in for you guys. Isolate. Isolate what is raised to a power. You want to get rid of the power by taking the root of both sides. Alright, if you take an even root, you will always need a plus or minus. What that means is if you have a square root, a fourth root, or a sixth root, anything even, you need a plus or minus.
In or out?
What do you mean?
Like you say you always need a plus or minus.
Meaning when you solve it, your answer should be plus or minus.
Oh.
If you are rooting a negative, you need to take out an I for imaginary. If you are rooting a negative number, you take out an I. That means if you have a negative under your radical sign, it comes out to be I. If you have an odd root, so that means if we have cube root, seventh root, ninth root, so on, there's an odd number there, you never need a plus or minus. Okay? Never. If you are rooting a negative, you need to take out a negative. So the difference here is if you have an even root, you must have plus or minus. If it's a negative under the radical, you pull it out to be I. If you have an odd root, you don't need plus or minus, but if it's negative under the radical, that negative stays. This part's important. You want to always check your answers by plugging them back into the original equation and seeing if they work. If they don't work, it's an extraneous solution, which just means you did all the work right, but that number for some reason does not work. So you can either put a check mark by it or something to indicate that you know that it works. All right, look at number 1. X squared minus 5 equals 139. I want this x by itself, so I have to move everything away from it. What needs to go first?
Minus 5.
The minus 5. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides to get rid of this 5. So I am left with
144.
x squared is equal to 144. Alright, now I still want to isolate this x here. What needs to go? What's stuck to it? The squared, right? This is what's important. In order to undo what's already done, you have to take the opposite. So this is a power of 2. I'm going to take the root of 2. So I'm going to square root each side. I'm going to square root each side. By undoing that power, my root and my power cancel out. So I'm left with x equals, what do I write first for even radical?
Plus or minus.
Plus or minus.
4.
And then what's the square root of 144? It's 12. Good. You don't have to write this down on your paper because you guys are pretty good about just typing things in. Let's say that we want to type this in. Let's check to make sure this works. You have 12 squared minus 5 equals 139. And you have negative 12 squared minus 5 equals 139. All I'm doing is just plugging this answer into my x. And I put it in parentheses. So let's see, if I have 12 squared, that's 144 minus 5 gives me 139. So positive 12 works. Negative 12 squared, I still get 144 minus 5, I get 139. So these answers work. Just put a check by it. Any question on number 1? All right. Let's look at number 2. I want this little guy by itself. What needs to go first?
5.
We're going to divide by 5, right? That 5 is attached to it. So let's divide by 5. I'm left with x cubed is equal to negative 125. All right, this is where it gets tricky. Charlie, this one's for you. My power is 3, so to undo it, I need what kind of root?
Negative.
Nope, the same number.
Oh, the same.
Yep, so I'm just going to take the root of 3. Okay, to undo a power of 3, I'm going to take the root of 3 on both sides. Okay, on my left side, my power and my root cancel out. That's what I wanted to do, right? Because I want my x by itself. In your calculator, type in, what is the cube root of negative 125?
-5.
You should get negative 5. Notice how we don't have a plus or minus sign because I have an odd root. My root is 3, so therefore I do not need it. I don't need an I don't need a plus or minus. So far, so good? Okay. All right, number 3, Ronaldo, what needs to go?
The negative.
Yep, so how do I get rid of it?
Do you add one?
Nope. That negative is being multiplied by that x squared, so how do I get rid of it?
Divide.
I'm going to divide by negative 1. So I'm left with x squared is equal to negative 1. Sonia, how do I get rid of this x squared?
Square root.
You're going to take the square root because my power is 2, so I take the root of 2, which we know is square root. My power and my root cancel out, so I just have x left over. I have an even root, so what do I write first? What?
Plus and minus.
Plus or minus,
I.
and then plus or minus I. Good. We know it's plus or minus I because I have negative 1. The square root of negative 1 is just I. That plus or minus comes from my even root. All right, number 4. On number 4, I want my x by itself. So to get rid of it, I'm basically doing opposite pendants. What needs to go first?
Minus.
Yep, my plus or minus. So I have plus 4, so I'm going to subtract 4 from each side. When I subtract 4 from each side, I get 2x to the 4th is equal to 162. Yeah, we're only doing 2 days of this, and then our quiz will be on the 11th. All right, now what do I get rid of? The 2. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So I now have x to the 4th is equal to what? 81. Good. This is where it gets tricky. Ronaldo or Sonia, either one. How do I get rid of that power of 4? Not square root, the 4th root. I know we're used to using square roots, but remember, whatever your power is, we do that same number as a root. So my power and my root are gone. I'm left with x equals, what comes next?
Plus or minus. 3.
Plus or minus, and if you do the 4th root of 81,
Where's this at?
you get 3. We're on day 1. What we're doing then is we're solving with different powers and roots, so you'll be able to catch on pretty quickly. Okay, so that's number 4. Right, number 5, it's on the next page, right? All right, number 5. I want my x by itself, so I'm going to divide by -2. So that's gone, and I'm left with x squared is equal to what? -25, good. Alright, I have a power of 2. I get rid of it with what? Yeah, and this is the square root. You get rid of it with the square root. What you do to one side, you do to the other to get rid of it. So my power and my root are gone. I'm left with x equals plus or minus, what'd you say? 5i, good. Some of you told us it's 5i because we have the square root of -25. The square root of 25 is 5. Whenever we have a negative under the radical for even roots, then I has to come out. Any questions on number 5? All right, number 6. You pay attention to this one. There's nothing to move away from my x to the 4th, right? I'm going to take the root of what? 4. 4, good. To both sides. So on my left side, my power and my root cancel out. I'm left with x equals. And then I have plus or minus. What I'm going to do is I'm going to separate these. We learned this last unit. So I have the 4th root of 16 over the 4th root of 81. And your calculators tell me, what is the 4th root of 16? Should get 2 for that one. Ronaldo, make sure for anything higher than a cube root, you type in the number first. Go to math, go down to number 5, it plugs in that number.
Oh, I did it right.
So the 4th root of 81
3.
is 3. And that's your answer. Questions there? All right, number 7. Dennis, what do I need to move because I'm trying to solve for x?
For 7.
Yep. So let's subtract 7 from both sides. So that's gone. So I have negative 2x to the 5th is equal to negative 64. When I divide by -2, what do I get? Divide that by, okay, so you have x to the 5th is equal to, you said 32? Good. All right, Dennis, I have a power of 5, so I want to do the root of what? 5, good. Because that is what cancels it out. And my power and my root cancel out, I have x left over. Do I need a plus or minus here? Do I need plus or minus?
No.
No, we don't need it because it's an odd root, okay? Plus or minus you always use with your even roots. So the 5th root of 32? 2. And I'm really bad about this, I'm sorry. I'll try to remember to tell you guys to keep plugging it in. If you grab your calculators and you type in -2 times 2 to the 5th plus 7, let me know if you get -57.
Wait.
The only ones I'm not going to make you check are the ones with the eyes. Okay, all we're doing, Dennis, is once we get x, we're plugging it back in to make sure we get that number out.
Wait, how'd you get, for 32, how'd you get 2?
the fifth root of 32. So I'll show you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You got it? Did you guys type in this into your calculator to see, does it work?
Yes.
Okay. -2 times 2 to the power of 5.
Answer.
What was left over? Plus 7? Yeah, good. You get
I
negative.
got a question.
What?
So when you put the power of 5, how are you bringing it down again to put the plus 7?
Oh, just scroll over.
Yes, sir.
Actually, yours might be a little different. Like, type it in for you.
2
times 2 to the power of 5.
5.
And scroll over. Okay. And you keep going. Wait, how'd you get negative 71?
This one,
Oh, because you didn't put negative 2. You put
Yeah, I didn't
positive 2. Alright, so this one works. We can put a check by it. We know that answer works. Alright, number 8. I have in parentheses x minus 4 to the 4th root. Sorry, to the power of 4 minus 3 equals 253. What we have to realize here is that, nope, we don't distribute. Because we're trying to like solve it easier, right? Distribute will make it longer. I'm doing the same thing, okay? Let's get rid of, imagine this is our whole x just because it's in parentheses, okay? So how we had earlier was x to the 4th, now there's just a parentheses there, so we still see it as the same. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and I get x minus 4 to the 4th power is equal to 256. Okay? We never want to take anything out from the parentheses. Okay? We have to get rid of it first. So, this whole parentheses area here is attached to my power. So to undo it, I'm going to undo the whole thing. I need the power of what? Sorry, the root of 4, because that is the opposite. And I do it to both sides. I'm taking the 4th root of both sides. So, my power and my root cancel out. I'm left with x minus 4. And then what's the 4th root of 256?
4.
What kind of 4? Plus or minus. Remember,
Oh yeah,
that's a biggie. You gotta remember that because it's an even root.
Well, what do we do with that? X minus 4.
I'm gonna show you.
Got it.
Alright, so now we want to get rid of my negative 4 because I want to solve for x. So I add 4 to both sides. Always add in front of your plus or minus. That cancels out, so I have x is equal to 4 plus or minus 4. This is not my answer. All I did was I moved this 4 over, right?
Yeah.
That 4 is basically in front of that. So I did 4 plus or minus 4.
Plus
So then my answer will be
8.
where you have plus and minus. So 4 plus 4,
8.
4 minus 4.
0.
When you're solving with plus or minus, if you have something else to solve, you have to give 2 answers. Alright, so what I want you guys to do is the last 4 on your own, and then we'll check them in 12 minutes. So I want you to actually work on them. And just sit there. Alright, you guys ready? Did you guys forget it was like pajama day today? Probably did.
I didn't even
I
know.
wanted to do it. I really
It's the
wanted
best
to
day
do
in
it.
the whole year.
I'll wear pajamas. I still don't know.
Actually, it's better when it's cold, and today is like the hottest day of the
Right.
year.
I mean,
It could be like
I
negative
would
5.
have,
So it's
but then I really want to, but
it's just how it
then.
works. Right? And I don't wear
I
it.
understand. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is since you guys already did these, I'm gonna just solve it. See if you made a mistake anywhere, fix it.
But one to the bit.
I divided by -1, it cancels out. So I'm left with x minus 1 to the third power is equal to -125. Alright, I want to get rid of this power of 3, so I took the root of 3. When that happens, my power and my root cancel out, and I have x minus 1 left over equals -5. Okay, it's -5 because it's not plus or minus because it's an odd root, right? And that negative, if there's a negative under the radical, you have to keep it. You don't put I. Okay, the I is only for even roots. So once we got here, I add 1, I add 1. Your answer should be -4. Did you guys get -4? If not, do you see why you made your mistake? Yes. Okay. Charlie, you good? Alright, so 9 is good. Look at number 10. On number 10, before I can move anything around, this is basically, my x is basically trapped inside the parentheses. So what I want to do is I want to take the 6th root of both sides. Okay? So my power and my root cancel out. I'm left with 2x minus 7 is equal to plus or minus, what's the 6th root of 729? 3. Good. This part gets a little tricky. When I want to solve for x, right, I move my 7, so I'm left with 2x is equal to, keep that 7 in front of your plus or minus 3. Don't make it 10, because it's not 10. It's 7 plus 3, 7 minus 3. So I'll just keep it all the same for now. Once I get here, I divide by 2 on each side. So I'm left with x equals, what's 7 plus 3? So you have 10 divided by 2. What's 7 minus 3? And then 4 minus 2. Alright, you can keep it like that if you want, but I would just go ahead and simplify. You should
Why do you
get,
have the 4?
huh?
Why do you have the 4?
7 minus 3.
Oh.
So your plus or minus here is 7 plus 3, 7 minus 3. That's what that plus or minus means. We're doing 2 operations.
Can you do something like this next class?
Mhm. All good with these answers, 5 and 2? Alright, number 11, I subtracted 4 from each side. So that left me with x plus 4 to the power of 3 is equal to 27. I took the cube root, because that's what I had there. My power of 3 and my cube root cancel out, so I'm left with x plus 4 is equal to 3. Why is it not plus or minus?
Because it's
It's an odd root. Because this root is odd, I don't need plus or minus. So now I'm just solving minus 4 minus 4. So x is equal to -1. You guys getting these right?
Yeah.
Good.
I'm trying to get
The solving part shouldn't be that bad because you guys are good at that. It's just remembering, especially with the parentheses
plus and minus.
and the plus and minus. I don't want you guys to subtract 4 without taking your root first.
even numbers is a plus and minus.
Yep. Even roots. So if you have like one of these small numbers that's even, that's when you do plus or minus. Alright, for number 12, this whole thing is attached together because that x is trapped in between the parentheses and that power. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So I have 2 times x plus 3 to the power of 4 is equal to 32. I divide by 2. Be careful to not distribute that. You never want to distribute. X plus 3 to the power of 4 is equal to 16. Now I can take fourth root of each side, so I can cancel out what's on the left. My fourth power and my fourth root cancel out. I'm left with x plus 3 is equal to, what do you guys get?
2.
2.
Fourth root of 16 should be plus or minus 2. Don't forget that plus or minus.
So why is it plus because of the 4?
Because that 4 is even. When it's even, you need a plus or minus.
So every time it's a plus or minus, it's 2 answers in it?
Yep. So what we learned before was that when we were doing square roots, right? It's always plus or minus.
Mhm.
A square root, your root is 2, which is even. So e plus n.
That's just my.
All right, so when I solve for x, be careful here. What we do is we're going to subtract 3, always in front of your plus or minus. So what you have is x equals negative 3 plus or minus 2. Don't leave your answer that way, okay? We have to solve that plus or minus. What's negative 3 plus 2? Negative 1, and then negative 3 minus 2?
-5.
Negative 5. So when you get to this step here, because we have a plus or minus, you're not just going to subtract straight across. That negative 3 goes in front of your plus or minus, and you just have to simplify it and solve it. How'd you guys do overall?
Good.
Pretty good? All right. Nice.